I have been so excited to know that Karen Jacobson was going to speak to us. And we had to work it out because the time difference, Australia in here, but she's here in Manhattan and graciously said that she would join us. It's so exciting for me. Our speaker is the GPS girl who actually overcame great barriers and navigated her way from the actual Great Barrier Reef to the Big Apple to become a voice in over 1 billion GPS and smartphone devices worldwide, including that of our president, Tony Woodall, who's been listening to her for years. She's an award-winning performer. She has been sung at the Star Spangled Banner at Madison Square Garden, Dodger Stadium, and Fenway Park, and received accolades from none other than Harry Connick Jr. She's the founder of an empowerment brand, the GPS Girl, author of 2 books, and an in-demand speaker. What I love is that, and it was mentioned before, Karen expands the message we so often hear from our GPS and shares strategies of how we can recalculate in every aspect of lives. So you are going to be entertained, educated, and inspired by our speaker, a global sensation, and the only woman men will happily take directions from, Karen Jacobson.
Thank you, Susan. So who here has been in a car with a GPS? Very good. And who has ever had it set to the female voice? Okay, good. So there is a chance that you and I have taken lots of fabulous trips together. I meet a lot of people in my travels and they want to tell me about their relationship with their GPS, and people do have one. Often they will share the name of their GPS or a wonderful trip we've taken together. One day I met Ryan. He came up to me and he said, "Oh, Karen, last weekend we went to my cousin's wedding in Milwaukee. It was fabulous. We had such a great time." And Ryan was talking to me as if I was with him at that wedding. Janice called. She said, "Oh my gosh, Karen, I've just landed at LAX and you are navigating me around Los Angeles." And then I went to an event in Brisbane, Australia, and I met a woman and she said, "Oh, Karen, you have to come with me into the other room and meet my girlfriends, because if it wasn't for you, we would still be lost in the mountains of Italy." But the one word people want to talk to me about more than any other is a word they don't like very much. But I'm here to talk about it today because I think it is the way. I think it is the answer. And that word is recalculating. Now, if you close your eyes when I say that, it's a little more spooky. Recalculating. It's just like when we're driving the car. I'm here to tell you that the word recalculating is actually good news, because when we are in the car and we've made a wrong turn and we find ourselves in need of some recalculation, generally the satellites will work their magic and in a few quick turns we are back on track, headed to our destination. Now in life, when we make a turn that we don't expect or that perhaps we are not that happy about, sometimes we can wander around on a back road, lost in the dark, sometimes for years. And if only we used recalculating, the power of recalculating. And what is recalculating when it comes to life and to business? Well, recalculating is the ability to let go of what did or did not happen on a daily basis. Now, in these recent times, I have noticed that it can be useful to recalculate sometimes much more frequently, on an hour-to-hour basis, sometimes on a moment-to-moment basis, to be able to realize that it is time to recalculate and to let go of what did or did not happen on a moment-to-moment basis. When might we want to know when we might want to recalculate? Well, today I'm going to share with you the 5 directions for recalculating, a 5-step process that you can use at any time, whether it be in your business life or in your personal life. But when might we know that it's time to recalculate? Often it's an emotional experience. So if we are tuned in to actually what we're feeling, it can be in a moment when we are upset, when we're angry, when we are feeling a little down in the dumps, or perhaps when we have a case of the I don't feel like it's. If you notice any one of these emotional experiences or reactions, this is an ideal time to recalculate. Really what we're talking about is shifting the energy. We're shifting the energy from one state to another state. And we are doing that really mindfully. We are doing that by bringing awareness to how we are feeling, and if we are stuck, being able to see it, being able to notice it. So I'm going to take you right back to the beginning. I am originally from a beautiful place in the world. The town I grew up in, Mackay, is right next to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. Sugar white sand, turquoise blue water, and 9 out of the 10 most poisonous snakes in the world. Paradise! But when I was a little girl, I was sitting in our family living room watching the television, and on came the most important and most influential person in the entire world. Olivia Newton-John, right? How fantastic is she? I'm seeing some nodding. I'm so happy. And when I saw her, my life changed. Here I was at the age of 7, and I saw Olivia Newton-John on television. And I wanted to be just like her. I knew that I wanted to become a professional singer and to move to America. That was my childhood dream. I had direction. I fast forward quite a number of years later, and I'm living in Sydney, Australia. I had become a professional singer. I was singing in the studio, jingles for television and radio commercials. I was doing some voiceover work. At night, I was singing 2 to 5 nights a week in 5-star piano bars. I'm a piano player and singer and songwriter, and I would play all the requests, and then I would throw in some of my original songs. And I had just started to perform regularly on Australian television, on live morning and daytime television shows. But here I was, I had fulfilled the first part of my dream, but I realized that I was off route. I noticed that I was off route. The first direction for recalculating, and I will send a graphic through to the amazing Susan to send to you with these 5 directions, but if you're going to write something down, the first direction for recalculating is to notice you are off route. To notice, to simply notice. When we become aware of something, that's the very first moment we can do something about it. You can recall an experience where something wasn't working the way you wanted it to in your life, but you didn't want to see it or didn't quite see it yet. And that can go along for a period of time, but it's at the time where you do notice, where you are suddenly like, oh, I didn't see it. Now I see it. That is the moment that you can begin to do something about it. And that is where recalculating and this entire process really begins. When you notice that you are off route. And many things in my life at that time were going very well. I was 31 years of age. I was living in Sydney. I was making a wonderful living in the entertainment business, which I didn't realize was a difficult business because nobody told me when I was young that that was actually a tough business. So I boldly stepped forward into a really wonderful career in business for myself. But I'd realized that here I was in Sydney, Australia, and I was off route. I was living in the wrong country. That dream I'd had when I was a little girl, I had achieved the first part, but the second part was to move to America. I started to tell everybody I knew that I'm moving to America. But I had this problem. And ever since I was a child, I had suffered from chronic anxiety. And in fact, when I was in primary school, if there was a singing competition or the school musical or a piano exam, I would have such severe abdominal pains. I would be at home from school for up to a week at a time. And they would send me to the doctor for rounds of tests. And they did every test possible at that time. And the doctor came out to the waiting room to my parents and he said, Mr. and Mrs. Jacobson, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your daughter. It's just nerves. That's what they called it in those days. They called it nerves. So I had my body sending me these very confusing signals because I loved more than anything else to sing and to be on stage and to connect with people through music. And then my body was shutting down and having me, pretty much debilitated. So fast forward, I realize I'm going to move to big, bad New York City, and I had to figure something out because this anxiety, I had learned some skills and some tools on how to handle it, but it still had me. I didn't have it. Do you know what I mean? So I was studying with an incredible teacher at that time, Kerry Bedell, one of Australia's most incredible singers, and I learned that the value of rehearsing something 50 times had the same value as doing it for real or a performance once. Imagine 50 rehearsals equaling one performance. I was blown away when I learned this information. So I set out to be, I moved to New York City and I set out to be on stage as often as I possibly could. I performed for money, for no money, as a guest in other people's shows and my shows in my own right. And here was my theory, which, simple as it may seem, worked. And that was that if I could be on stage as often as possible, there would be much shorter lag time between when I knew I would have to be performing and when I was actually performing. And you know what? It did work. I broke through that anxiety and I grew in a way that gave me the ability to be what I like to call performance ready. To be performance ready, to at a moment's notice, to be able to hop up in front of a group of people and deliver what I am able to and what I am here to deliver. Are you performance ready? Are you ready at a moment's notice to do what you have been put on this planet to do? The first direction is to notice that you are off route. The second direction for recalculating is to be willing to change direction. Being willing to do things differently. I was willing to perform as often as I possibly could, to approach it in a different way, to be willing. Now, who here has had anything to do with toddlers or small children at any point in their lives? Very good. Or as I'm currently discovering, teenagers. Not so different. So being willing is the most challenging direction for recalculating. And being willing. If you have had something to do with toddlers or teenagers and you have tried to make them do something that they do not want to do, how does that go? What kind of results do we have when we try and make them do something? It doesn't work. It absolutely does not work. You cannot make somebody do something they do not want to do if they're not willing. Perhaps with a tiny child, you can physically pick them up and take them out of a situation, but otherwise it is fruitless. Now, as adults, we are not that different. Being willing to do things differently, to change direction. The third direction for recalculating is to clarify your destination. Now, even though it might be just you right there in your space, I am going to ask you to repeat that line in your very best GPS voice. When I recorded the voice system, I was asked to sound calm and consistent. So very calmly and consistently, just for yourself, I want you to say, clarify your destination. Let's do it again. Clarify your destination. Very good. Isn't that calming? I love it when people use their very own personal GPS voices. Clarifying your destination. Why we do this is if we are in the process of recalculating and we've noticed that we're off route and we are willing to change direction, we want to take a look back at where we thought our destination was in the beginning, where we thought we were initially headed before we started the recalculation process. By clarifying our destination, we are now addressing, are we actually still headed to the same place? Because new information has come to light. So it may not be the case. You might be headed to the same destination through a detour, or it could be a course correction. You might be headed somewhere else. And that is okay, as we have been discovering over and over again, particularly in the last few years. Life is unpredictable. We aren't quite sure how it's going to unfold. Now, pre-March 2020, we didn't know either. We just thought we had a better grasp on it. But now it's pretty clear. Life is unpredictable. If you are able to build your ability to be comfortable with recalculating, to stay even emotionally or bring yourself back to that even emotional space, and to notice you're off route, to be willing to change direction, to clarify your destination, life is so much more enjoyable and comfortable. This is really about being able to navigate change powerfully with yourself in the driver's seat. So clarifying your destination. After I left Sydney and I moved to New York City, sometime later, a client reached out to me and they had an audition. I was here to be a singer and songwriter, and that's what I was doing in Manhattan. And this brief read, "We are looking for a native Australian female voiceover artist living in the northeast of the United States." Now, I read that description and I tell you, it was a description of me. It's very few times in my life that I have read a brief for an audition and thought, this job is mine. But this was one of a handful of occasions where that's exactly what I thought. They're looking for me. I went along to the audition and they had me say some words like this, and again, it can be much more fun if you close your eyes while I say them. They had me say, "At the next intersection, turn left." And they had me say, "You have reached your destination." And everybody's favorite, recalculating. You can open your eyes if you close them. I came out of the booth into the control room, and the client said, "You are hired. Now, we are recording a text-to-speech voice system. We are going to need to take you to upstate New York, to Ithaca, New York, and we'll put you in a hotel for 3 weeks. The voice system's going to require you to record 50 hours of script. And we don't want to record more than 4 hours a day because we want your voice to sound, we don't want it to sound fatigued or tired in any way, and we want it to sound calm and consistent." I went up to Ithaca. I was in the hotel. They picked me up. They took me to the studio on day one. We recorded for 4 hours. Then we finished. I went to Moosewood for lunch, if you know Ithaca. Then I headed back to my hotel room to rest my voice for the rest of the day. And this continued on for 3 weeks. And at the end of that time, I came back to Manhattan, to New York City, to continue my life as a singer and songwriter. 2 years later, I got a phone call from my girlfriend. She called me. She said, "Karen, it's Nadia, and my husband and I were driving back from Maine to the city after the Christmas holiday, and I bought my husband one of those new GPS thingos for Christmas." And he said, "Oh, why don't we put it on the Australian voice?" So we put it on the Australian voice. And oh my God, Karen, oh my God, it's you! It's your voice in the GPS! And I turned to my husband and I said, "Oh no, I gave you Karen Jacobson for Christmas." And that is how I found out that my speaking voice had ended up in what is now over 1 billion GPS and smartphones and elevators and cruise ships and software applications all around the world, telling people where to go and what to do while I am here with you right now. This was an unexpected development in my singer-songwriter career. I could have left it right there, but I could see there was something in it. There was something to create, because when I would meet people and they knew it was my voice that they were spending all of that time with in their vehicle or in their phone, they would get very, very excited about meeting me and sharing their GPS stories. Sometimes they would be sheepish and want to apologize for yelling at me or swearing at me. I'm sure nobody in the Golden Gate Breakfast Club, nobody here, absolutely not. But it was, what was really special and noticeable to me was this familiarity. People would speak with me as if I really was their very best friend. And that is a precious quality to witness and to be given that kind of intimacy. So I knew there was something in it and something to create. And ultimately, I created an empowerment brand, the GPS Girl brand. I made that connection between directions in the car and directions in life, and created the definition of the principle for recalculating and the 5 directions for recalculating, which has led to speaking on stages all over the world. It has led to writing 2 journal-style books and to really empowering and uplifting people with a simple and effective process to navigate change powerfully. Clarify your destination. I could have left it there. I could have continued with my singer-songwriter career, but I was able to zoom out and to look at the satellite view and to be able to see that there was a way of incorporating that message of recalculating with my music and bringing it all together in a way to be of service and to elevate others. Now it seems that the entire world is currently recalculating. That I did not foresee. However, it's my experience that this principle and this skill set, which is a skill set you can build possibility thinking. You can build the ability to even out emotionally, to bring yourself back to even, to recalculate. There has never been a more important time to be able to have that and build that skill set. Notice you are off route. Be willing to change direction. Clarify your destination. Perhaps there is somewhere in your life, there is something tapping on your shoulder metaphorically, something you have been meaning to work on, wanting to, but not quite sure how it makes sense. I am here to help you give yourself permission to listen to what I love to refer to as your inner GPS. That inner voice, that inner sense of self. Some people may call it their gut feeling, their heart, their higher self, their soul, whatever you want to call it. But we all know when we have that strong sense of what there is to do next. And it can be difficult because it can sometimes look odd to others. It can sometimes seem like a not very good idea. And if you go around looking for advice, people will tell you what you shouldn't be doing, even if it feels right to you. But those times in your life where there was something you really, really wanted to do and everybody said, oh, no, this is the way. And you followed everybody else. And it turned out that your way was actually correct. And then there are those times in our lives where we know what is right for ourselves and we take that step, even though all the voices around us think we have lost it. And it does turn out to be best for us. When we listen to our inner GPS, it always works out. In fact, it does not steer us wrong. The fourth direction for recalculating is to embrace the steering wheel. Say it with me in your calm and consistent GPS voice. Embrace the steering wheel. This is about getting ready to go for it, geeing ourselves up, getting ourselves in check, ready to boldly and bravely step forward, to embrace the steering wheel. It's about moving from the passenger seat to the driver's seat and getting ready to go for it. And the fifth and final direction for recalculating is to accelerate. And this is all about action. Ideas are amazing. Ideas are wonderful, but action is where it's at. And if you are recalculating, if you are going through this process, you've noticed you are off route, you're willing to change direction, you've clarified your destination, you're ready to go, you've embraced the steering wheel. Often, at that point, there is an energy and a momentum that arises that is it's infectious in a good way. And sometimes that occurs at a very inconvenient moment, like it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you really think you should be sleeping, but you're having so many exciting ideas about this new pathway for yourself. Pop that light on, put your voice memo on and speak them all, or jot them down on that special journal that you put beside your bed so that you always have somewhere to write down those golden ideas. When we are at the action phase, at the accelerate phase, there really is a lot of excitement and a lot of enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the most beautiful emotional or human experiences, and useful. I was invited to attend a gala, and this mover and shaker business person invited me, and he said, Karen, there's going to be an amazing gala and in New York City, and there'll be all kinds of celebrities and VIPs there, and I would love you to come, and I would love you to bring your husband and sit at my corporate table. So on the big night, we arrived at Cipriani on Wall Street, that Wall Street, and my husband was wearing his tuxedo and I was wearing my I'm going to meet lots of fabulous celebrities tonight dress. Right, girls? And we arrived, we walked in, the ballroom was gorgeous. High ceilings decorated so immaculately. And I saw the mover and shaker business person. And they said to me, Karen, come with me, come over here. And he heralded me across the ballroom to where there was a swarm of people and somebody in the middle of that swarm of people, and he pushed me through that group of people. And there I was, standing face to face with the most important and most influential person in the entire world. Olivia Newton-John! And I started to gush. And I said, I really want to thank you. I want to thank you for the impact you've had on my life. Every major decision I've ever made, from where I live to what I do, is because of you, and I want to acknowledge you. And Olivia Newton-John said, oh, that's such a lovely thing to say. What's your name? And I said, Karen Jacobson. And Olivia Newton-John said, and I kid you not, you're Karen Jacobson? I love your CD. I am still getting over it. And in that moment, I knew I was okay. I had reached my destination. And I knew that maybe, just maybe, I was enough. Now, in your very best GPS voice, I want you to say to yourself, with absolute confidence, you are enough. Now we'll say, I am enough. You have reached your destination.
Thank you so much, Karen. Wow, amazing presentation. I'm gonna take you off spotlight and let everybody see you and see each other. And we'll start with questions, and I'm gonna be the first one, and then I see Janice after me. I put in the chat, and I want to thank you. You have been my GPS voice for many years, and I appreciate that. I remember you were not my ex-wife's favorite person. She used to, why do you have an Australian woman talking on your GPS?
Let's face it, I was your car girlfriend.
That's right, you were. So needless to say, I recalculated. That's why she's my ex-wife. But I have enjoyed your voice. It's just amazing to be able to put the picture to the voice after all of these years. I did specifically check the Australian female voice for my GPS, so thank you so much. But my question is, how much did you get paid for that recording session, and do you get royalties for the billions of GPSs that you are on?
Oh, many business professionals are quite interested in that question. Are we still recording? We are still recording.
We are still recording.
So my answer to that question is that if it had gone a certain way, we would all be on my private island right now.
Yep, that's what I figured, but all right. Anybody else? Janice, you had a question.
First of all, Karen, welcome so much to San Francisco. I've seen you from afar at many NSA conferences, and I'm so happy to have you right here on my screen today. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And my family loves you too, of course. My question for you is, when you were stepping back, getting that satellite view of your life, what clicked in your mind that you wanted to become a speaker? You told us the journey, but in your mind, what was the journey?
Oh, well, in my mind, I was invited to speak to a group of university students who were studying music, performing artists and musicians. And it was in that presentation, I wasn't a speaker at that point, but I was invited to speak, and I'm thinking, what have I got to share with these people? I didn't become Celine Dion or anything. This is about 12 years ago. And I was nervous, and I went along and I just shared some stories about my life. This was back in Australia, and I shared some stories about my life and experiences in America, and recording, half a dozen albums on my own label at that point, and singing the national anthem in big stadiums, and opening for Neil Sedaka and Norah Jones and Cyndi Lauper, and all the while thinking, but I didn't become Celine Dion or Olivia Newton-John. But in that presentation, and I'm so happy you asked this question, Janice, there was something that clicked in the moment, in that magical space when you are connecting with a group. Mm-hmm. They were so hungry for what I had to share. I was stunned at how much they wanted to know what I had to share with them on how to get to America, how to become a professional performing artist. And I thought, I have something to contribute. I have something to share. I have a message. This is bigger than only the music. I have a message. So I realized that I had a message that could make an impact. So that is what happened for me in that particular moment. And from there, I have, you know how that happens when you have a realization like that, and then suddenly somebody contacts you and says, oh, we need someone to MC an event, and then you go to that event and someone there was a member of NSA, and the rest is history.
Hey, Janice mentioned NSA. 2 questions, Karen. Will you be in Nashville at the NSA Influence? And the other one, how tall are you?
Well, 2 answers. Yes, I will be in Nashville at an amazing family reunion at NSA, because I have not seen my NSA family in a very long time, only on screens. And the second question, I thought I had the answer for, and now I can't remember it. What was the second question? Oh, 177 centimeters. That's a little project for you.
Well, is that 6 feet or not?
Not quite.
Well, I still want to get a picture with you.
No problem at all. We'll do it.
All right, next question, Patricia.
Well, it's always exciting seeing an NSA friend do superbly well. And this is the perfect time for this message to clarify my destination, especially after my wonderful 3 weeks off where I need more of that. And although I've heard the story before, I totally teared up when I heard it again about you meeting her. And Carl Walsh also knows that Olivia Newton-John has great taste because he has your CDs as well. So my question is, because I'm superb at accelerating. Superb. I accelerate better than most. However, the recalculating and clarifying your destination, I have to do more often. Now, I would say, what is next for you? Because you've accomplished so many goals, and I'm sure Tony would tell us, you have to always reset the new ones. Otherwise, life seems, well, what is that all there is? So what's next for you?
Thank you for asking, Patricia, and always extra, important, I suppose, to me to make sure I'm doing things the way they're meant to be done and the most effectively. Having you in the presentation is always just a privilege, Patricia. Thank you. So for me, I could have spoken for another 30 minutes just about our experience recalculating during this period of time and in March of 2020. when everything went, when all of my husband and my work cancelled and our son's school went remote, my husband turned to me and said, "Shall we go to Australia?" And I said, "That's a bit dramatic, isn't it?" And fast forward, we did go to Australia, and today is actually my first full day in Manhattan since March of 2020. We recalculated, we went to Australia thinking we'd be there for a few weeks and have now started to build a new life there. And during that process, I realized it was time for me to be giving myself what seemed the luxury and the gift of being more creative and letting myself record and release music more frequently. So I am about to release my 11th studio album. I've recorded almost 3 new albums in the last 18 months, which is a tremendous amount of material, and I am passionate about getting the word out about the region we're in, the Whitsundays, which is at the Great Barrier Reef. And so the music videos I've been putting together, there are a lot of creative projects, putting together a local creative team in an area that is not known for the arts, and then creating world-class music videos showcasing the absolute natural, pristine beauty of the Coral Sea and the Whitsunday Islands and the hinterland there in my music videos. So if people do want to go and see them at KarenJacobson.com and on YouTube, you can actually experience what I think are very gloriously healing nature videos and visuals together with my melodic songs. And I am the co-founder of a new songwriter festival in that region, in this remote tourist town called the Whitsundays Songwriter Festival, under the umbrella of the Whitsundays Arts Festival. And, you know, I really reached a moment where I thought, I've lived in major cities where I am there to soak up what is provided in terms of arts and culture. Now I am living in a remote place where I'm here to contribute to elevating arts and culture. And that was the huge shift for me, and my ability to come back and plug in and out of major cities and centres can then further develop that. And I know this is a really long answer, but I have lots of plans, and one of them that I cannot wait to be sharing about later this year is I've taken an iconic Australian speech, and I have set it to music, word for word, and I'm creating a pop orchestral work. It's about a 60-minute pop orchestral work that is going to be premiered with an orchestral ensemble in the second half of this year, and I cannot wait to share more. It has a very important message and has been an amazing creative project. So thank you, Patricia, and I understand that was a lot of sharing from me.
Cool. The next question. So, Carl, you had your hand where you're waving for CDs there. Do you have a question or anything as well? Or?
Well, I just wanted to add, you know what's really weird is when I'm driving somewhere and I'm listening to this or I'm listening to that, and suddenly she interrupts her own song to tell me where to turn right. That's all.
She can't help herself.
That's funny.
It doesn't seem like you'll ever escape me, Carl.
Yeah, I appreciate, as I mentioned, I appreciate your talk today. It came at a good time right before I leave for the Camino, because one of the purposes of me going on this journey is to think about recalculating my life going forward. So, good time. Anybody else have any questions? Christine? And then Susan?
Okay, just a quickie. I wondered about getting your CDs. Is it as simple as just going online and placing an order, or and if so, where?
Thank you, Christine, for asking. My most recent record, Ready for What I Came Here For, is available in hard copy from KarenJacobson.com. So JACOBSEN, KarenJacobson.com. And all of my music is available digitally from the same place. Digitally, so online, you can buy everything. And I have a bundle of everything, as well as the individual songs and CDs. And then the brand new song, The Slipstream, is the first single of the next album, which is coming out in coming months. Thank you for asking.
They sound fabulous. And so one goes online and just puts in your name and tries to find the best medium and assortment. Because
That's right.
It really sounds magical and very powerful as well. And I in a very small way, nothing vast like yours. I've been learning songs in dozens of languages at different times, but the simpler and the more familiar to people and the more it gets through, the better. And you do that in huge scale, and I'm totally in awe. Thank you for being here and sharing.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Susan, you had a question.
Well, I'm particularly impressed that you are not only returning to Australia, but that you have taken all that you've gathered and that you have become the mentor, the teacher, the guide, the inspiration. And I think that's wonderful, because I think we forget that at some point the turn is we become the person that shares with the next generation. And I think that frankly is wonderful, and I appreciate it. And I bet in not too long a time we're going to be hearing about that small little musical festival that you co-sponsored, that it's going to be huge, Karen, because you know how to take the right turns.
Thank you, Susan. I really have a big vision for that songwriter festival and residency. I mean, we're inviting really serious, we don't have the serious budget yet, but we are still inviting incredible internationally renowned writers to participate, and I plan on that growing. So thank you very much.
Any other questions? Betty, go ahead. I'll come off mute. There you go.
Karen, thank you for a really clever and excellent presentation. I love your 5 points, how you went back and delivered the presentation as well. My question is this. I think we all pivot and recalculate, and I like it thinking about moment to moment, not just big, huge issues in our lives. When you recalculate from, let's say, a phone call or something that was distressing or disturbing or whatever, there's people who are more positive and people who are not quite as positive with their outlook on life. How do you guide or counsel people who really have challenges pivoting when something wrong happens in their life? I'm a positive person, but I'm just curious, how do you help them?
Oh, what an amazing question, Betty, and thank you. It's really important to take a few minutes to jot down a list for yourself of what is most, and to just pay attention to what is most effective for you. And if you don't know what is most effective for you, learn what is most effective for you. And it's simple. I'm all about simplicity. So it might be stand up, go to the kitchen and have a glass of water. It might be go for a walk outside down to the end of the driveway or to the end of the block or further. It might be send a text message to a friend and say, can you just say something positive and help me shake my funk? It might be picking up the phone. But it is small ways are really effective at interrupting that kind of malaise or experience. You know, it's almost it's a little bit like a sales call. You make a sales call, it doesn't go well, you need to clear yourself, you need to clear your mind, you need to clear your energy. So there are a number of ways, many of them incredibly simple. So it would be my suggestion to get really clear what they are. And sometimes in the moment, it is tough to even remember what they are. That's why it's nice to write them on a list and have them right there at your workspace or at your desk or in your phone, somewhere handy, so that when we are in it, there is a way out of it. There is some support that we've created for ourselves for our way out of it. And we didn't talk today about mindfulness and meditation. That is a huge asset of my life and a tool that I recommend so very highly, whether it be for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 20 minutes twice a day, which is what I do. This is, it is a remarkable set of tools. It is free, and you want to connect yourself to your inner GPS in a powerful way, you meditate every day. Even if you start with 2 minutes, but do not miss a day. That is the magic in my experience. Thanks for asking, Betty.
Just taking deep breaths. Thank you for your answer. Great talk.
Derek Arden, go ahead, sir.
Karen, Derek Arden from London, UK. Fabulous talk. Thanks very much. Two questions very quickly. Who's your second singer hero after Olivia Newton-John? And the second question is, how do you get your ideas for writing your songs? 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're meditating, or on the beach?
Funny you should ask that. So first of all, I would say Stevie Wonder is genius personified. He just is otherworldly and so connected to the divine. I think his voice and songs are extraordinary. How I get the ideas for my songs. So for many years, my writing would be when I was in a car, in a train, walking along the street. When I'm in motion is when the ideas would come to me, and often be about relationships and love relationships. And now that I'm in a really happy marriage, I write far less songs only about being heartbroken, because I'm not. And interestingly, in this last couple of years, I studied transcendental meditation. And when I did that, soon afterward, I would notice that during my meditations, melodies and lyrics would come into my head. And when you're meditating, you're supposed to focus on the meditating. You're not supposed to stop and do anything else. But one day the idea was so strong, I was like, oh gosh, it was so persistent. And I picked up my phone, I sang the idea into my voice memo, then went back to my meditation. And this is now how 90% of my songs are written. And they will come fully formed, or the entire music, maybe, and the first few lines or the idea of the verse, and then I take it to the piano after my meditation and finish the song. So I'm particularly excited to share this latest album, including the Slipstream, because those songs, many of them were written during meditation, and it's my feeling that they really have a very strong healing message or vibration, given how it was such a pure space those songs came through in. So thank you for asking that question, Derek.
Thank you, Karen.
Great question and answer. Who has another one? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Then if you really have a question that you want to ask,